All right, welcome to another episode of the Political Playbook. I'm Wyatt, and this is my co-host Darren. And today we've got a couple of different topics to cover. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be the Signal Gate, as they're calling it. Basically, here's what happened: the Trump administration wanted to airstrike the Houthis, which is a rebel group in Yemen, and they were discussing when, where, what time, do they delay it, and all that. And here was who was involved on this app or messenger app called Signal, which is a secure messaging app that they use for covert ops and basically like lower level unclassified settings, right? So they make a group chat. The guy who's in charge of this is Mike Walls. All right. So he makes a group chat with basically everyone except the president that is relevant to this matter, right? So you have just the short list is JD Vance, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, Tulsi Gabbard, Susie Wiles, John Ratcliffe, Stephen Miller, and I think Steve Witkoff was there too. And these are all like the top security officials in the world on matters regarding the Middle East, warfare, treasury, whatnot. They made one little hiccup is the problem. They accidentally added a journalist. This journalist was the editor in chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, and he was not supposed to be in there. So essentially, what happens is they're going back and forth texting without realizing that there is a journalist among them. Now, Jeffrey Goldberg claims that whenever all this was happening, he thought it was a joke. Maybe it was the Russians trying to do a misinformation campaign, so he didn't report on any of it. And then finally, the airstrikes happen, and he realizes, oh no, this is all real. So of course the story breaks and everything goes crazy. And at first, pretty much everyone, including all the people in that chat, just deny it. I mean, here's Pete Hegseth officially saying like there were no war plans involved in this group chat.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Which of course turned out to be a complete lie. I mean, the whole group just started lying. Matter of fact, the next day, all of the top intelligence officials were testifying before Congress. All right, and Tulsi Gabbard lied, John Ratcliffe lied, like every one of these people lied, and we couldn't prove it at the time because Goldberg had released the receipts. And so after basically getting upset that everyone was calling him a liar and saying that he made all this up and there are no sources or anything, he finally just decided to release pretty much everything. The only thing he didn't release is that there was an undercover agent uh, in Yemen that they did not want to compromise in any way, even though they're likely compromised now. I mean, who knows, right? But that's essentially the story: is that they were using an app that they should have been using, talking about stuff that they should have been talking about, and they added, I guess, they added a journalist, not on purpose. They didn't mean to. So I guess we're just lucky that they didn't add the Chinese ambassador, the Russian ambassador, a Houthi, a journalist who's like got malicious intent. Like, I mean, Darren, like, you just talk to me about the absurdity of this story, right? Like, this is just blatant. At the best case scenario is negligence, right? Like,
Yeah, well, the incompetence is certainly striking. I mean, you just know if it were anyone on a lower rung, like some lower level staffer that had somehow, put a journalist in this chat that, heck, they might even be, facing, criminal charges. Who knows? Just severe negligence. However, I don't think anything is going to happen to Mike Waltz. It seems as though Trump is reluctant to, admonish him in any way or let any, fire him. He would see, I guess he sees that as, playing into the left's hands somehow. I think he should punish
well, this
or
is
fire Mike Waltz, honestly, and then
Yeah,
But
this
what were you
is
gonna
this
say?
is what's really striking to me because I feel like a first term Trump, I think he's lost his edge basically. Because
Oh
like
yeah.
during his first term, this guy would have already been gone, in my opinion. Like this guy, Trump would have been like, "Sorry, you embarrassed the administration. You're giving us too much bad press. Get out." You know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, he fired quite a few people in his first term, so maybe in his age he's become a bit of a softy. And to your point, maybe I need to reevaluate the likelihood of him ousting Elon. As I hypothesized he would eventually, but maybe not. If he's going to be this soft on Mike Waltz, I mean, what other screw ups will he tolerate? Who knows? But
Right.
with all that conjecture being said, that's a little off the point. I just don't know how something like this happens. Like, obviously, this Jeffrey Goldberg guy must have been in Mike Waltz's contacts. But Mike Waltz is not a fan. Not Mike Waltz. Jeffrey Goldberg is kind of oppositional to Trump.
Right.
So I don't know. Why. They're they're I guess they correspond enough to where he could mistakenly put
Yeah.
his
Mike Walls is claiming that he's never met Jeffrey Goldberg, and Jeffrey Goldberg is running around like, well, that's obviously not true. Like, there's pictures of us together, there's videos of us
yeah
chatting. He's like, I don't know why this guy is acting like he never met me. You know what you know what I mean?
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. I did see Crystal and Sagar, or not, maybe no, it wasn't Crystal and Sagar. It was Crystal, or sorry, Sagar and Grimm. They were talking about how they think Jeffrey Goldberg was like basically a leak for Walls, you know?
It could be. It could be. But what would like oh wait, are you speculating that Mike Waltz intentionally did it?
No, God, no. No, I don't know. No. I think that this is pure incompetence. This is no, none of this was I actually don't agree that Jeffrey Goldberg is a leak for Mike Walls. I'm just saying that that's what I've heard people say that they think that this was done on purpose or like this was like a hack to try and mess with the Trump administration. Like none of that makes any sense to me.
Yeah, I have to agree. I can't see how it could ever be intentional because what would Mike Waltz gain? I mean, if anything, this has just been such an embarrassment for him. I'm really, back to our earlier point, I'm surprised he still has a job. So,
He should be fired. He absolutely should be fired. But
oh yeah, it's a national embarrassment. I don't know why Trump is being
forget
so lenient.
forget embarrassment, brother. It's a security risk. You know what I mean? Like how and the message you're sending to people is that this isn't that big of a deal, right? And I
yeah.
and I think listen, it's just a fact. Like if a lower level service member would have done this, they would have not only been discharged, they would have been potentially thrown in prison for, this. Like, right?
Oh
If
yeah.
if I just can't understand this. And then let's start with this. Why on earth are they using Signal, right? Cuz Signal so it's basically a more secure version of like WhatsApp, Discord, Messenger, stuff like that, right? But it's not even designed to be secure enough for like highly classified top secret materials, right? It's meant for like let's say you're in the military and you're trying to organize like PT. That's what it's for. Like, yeah, meet here at 0600, let's go run and then let's start our PT, right? It's or like, hey, meeting to discuss whatever, like low level, not important stuff. It has never ever been meant to discuss strikes on this stuff. And this is the theory for me is that this is just a way to get around the Freedom of Information Act because if they went through official channels, all of that stuff is recorded, right? Like there's no way around it. But when you use Signal, right? And in fact, a matter of fact, a judge actually said that like no, like these Signal messages, if you're going to use Signal for these types of conversations, they have to be part of record. Okay, so that way, eventually, in 60 years, with the Freedom of Information Act, we'll be able to see how these decisions were made. But I wonder how the Supreme Court will rule on that. But yeah, this whole thing is just absurd. I mean, like you said, it's a national embarrassment. They were crap talking our allies. Like there was a
I
beef
know.
between JD Vance and the president. He was like, "Does the president not understand this is inconsistent with his messaging?" And then Stephen Miller says, "As the president clearly said." And I was like, "Oh God, they're like beefing it out in this group chat. This is hilarious."
Oh yeah. Well, but on that, on like you said about how they were trashing allies, JD Vance said something like, "Oh, I hate bailing out those European freeloaders," or something to that effect. And I'm like, who's more of a freeloader? Israel, but he
Duh.
can't bring himself to say it. It's like that one thing is so anathema. But it says so much about him. It says so much about the administration, and what can and can't be said. And it's like, what you're, what has Europe done to you, where you're gonna trash them, but we're in this mess because we're supporting Israel? It's just, oh my gosh, it's infuriating.
Yeah.
And what sucks is that JD Vance, relative to the others, seemed like the voice of freedom, voice of reason, and he sounded like an idiot. So,
Yeah, talk about the best of a bad bunch, you know what I mean? I
oh
mean,
yeah, oh yeah.
for God's sakes, none of it makes any sense. And I'll tell you what, the funniest part about this to me is that this strike, everyone knows, right? I mean, this is not at all going to stop the Houthis. I mean, they're basically in underground bunkers, like real, and I don't mean like Hamas underground bunkers. I mean like they are in real armored bunkers underground. Like these campaigns are going to take weeks. I mean, it's kind of like when the Biden administration they bombed them into oblivion.
Oh yeah.
And they asked Joe Biden, and partly because the guy has dementia, he accidentally committed candor, and they asked
Oh
him
yeah, I
this.
can recite this quote.
They
Are
said, "Oh, go ahead, go ahead."
are the strikes working? No. Will they continue? Yes.
Like it doesn't make any sense. But I guess that aside, I mean, I got to be honest with you. We are so lucky that there aren't dead like servicemen and servicewomen like pilots, because if this would have leaked in any way and gotten to the Houthis, like they have anti-air technology, and they would have known exactly when to look. They would probably know like semi-close where to look, you know? But
Hmm.
this is all crazy. And then the best part, this is the best part for me, Darren. The intelligence community testifies before Congress, right? And they basically say, and this is when the story just broke, right? So the story
Hmm.
just breaks. They're testifying before Congress, and the Democrats are just giving these people hell, you know? And they're just doing the classic, Wolf of Wall Street. I do not recall. I have no recollection. I do not recall. I mean, I'm going to play a clip here.
And so were the Vice President, the Secretaries of State and Defense, the National Security Advisor, and Ms. Gabbard, correct?
I believe so. I don't have a list of who was invited to be
And
on.
so was national political reporter Jeffrey Goldberg, correct?
I don't know that.
Yes, you do.
I don't know Jeffrey Goldberg, and I've already testified. I don't know whether or how he was added.
Okay, well, he was a member of the signal chain, and the discussion included the Vice President's private opinion on the wisdom of proposed U.S. strikes in Yemen, correct?
I don't recall.
Vance, quote, "I think we are making a mistake. I am not sure the President is aware of how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There was a strong argument for delaying this a month." You don't recall?
I don't. As you
You don't recall seeing that?
read that, I don't.
It included the private opinions of the Secretary of Defense on the timing of strikes in Yemen, correct?
I don't recall.
Director Radcliffe, surely you prepared for this hearing today. You were part of a group of principals senior echelons of the U.S. government in now a widely publicized breach of sensitive information. You don't recall whether the vice president opined on the wisdom of the strikes? That's your testimony today under oath?
In that setting, I don't recall.
Here's what Secretary Hegseth said, quote, waiting a few weeks or months does not fundamentally change the calculus. Two immediate risks on waiting. One, this leaks and we look indecisive. Two, Israel takes an action first or Gaza ceasefire falls apart and we don't get to start this on our own terms. Your testimony is you don't recall the Secretary of Defense sending that message or reading it?
I recall there being an exchange. I don't recall the specifics as you're reading it.
Well, let's put it this way, Director Ratcliffe, a discussion by senior U.S. officials on the timing and risks of a proposed military campaign and disagreements between the president and the vice president about U.S. plans and intentions would be of obvious interest to foreign intelligence services, would it not?
Yes.
And they were discussing the timing of sending U.S. air crews into enemy airspace where they faced an air defense threat, correct?
I'm going to, Senator, defer to the other principles that you're referring
Director
to
Ratcliffe.
about what the meaning and the context of
They're
what they
talking
were
about the
auditing.
timing of U.S. airstrikes, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and therefore the timing of sending U.S. air crews into hostile airspace, correct?
Yes.
And therefore the time period during which enemy air defenses could target U.S. air crews flying in enemy airspace, correct?
I don't know that.
You do know that.
They interrogated everybody.
Had a low blood sugar, thyroid thing.
It went on for months. It was a total fucking harassment.
Trying to proceed with the question.
But not a single Strattonite cracked.
Gladys Carrera?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Sorry, I have no recommendation of that.
No.
Jack
No.
Staff.
No idea.
I don't recall that transaction. Do you guys have any milk?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, basically they're just like, yeah, I don't recall. It's hilarious. It's like, Jesus. And they just lied. They just lied and lied. And then the story breaks, right? Like he just releases the full screenshot of everything because he got called a liar.
Mhm.
And then they go to the House, where the House does the same thing, where they're like, so, about yesterday, what the fuck was that about, huh? You just lied? And then Tulsi Gabbard was like, well, about my testimony yesterday, I guess I was mistaken. Sorry. Like, what? They were totally just gonna try and get away with the lie. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how is that not perjury?
Oh yeah, it's I mean, it's so bad that it's just laughable. I mean, because there's no sophistication to it, you know. I mean, speaking of the lack of sophistication, I mean, they're using like emojis. It just looks ridiculous, and it's such a funny. I mean, not really funny, but Yemeni civilians died in these strikes, and they're over here doing like muscle emojis and fire.
Oh yeah, the message that so they got a positive ID on the target, right? And they said he just walked into his girlfriend's building, and then they leveled the building, and then Mike Wall sends a fist bump, an American flag, and a fire emoji, and he's literally congratulating.
Oh yeah, they were like, good job, everyone.
Good job, great
Good
job,
job,
everyone.
Hegseth.
Yeah, it doesn't. And then the part that gets it for me is when Pete Hegseth sent the text that says OPSEC, which is operational security, is a go, which means that there's no leaks. And he said that this is something out of you ever seen the show Keystone Cops or Super Troopers, where it's just absurd cops doing crazy stuff. This is like this is a South Park episode, right? Like, this is unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up, and this is actually happening. So he tweets that OPSEC is clear in the group chat, where OPSEC is compromised by an anti-Trump administration journalist. I mean, you literally cannot make this up. This is unbelievable. And like you said, no one's gonna be fired. No one.
Now, I will say, on a more positive note, you know me, I've been detailing how I've been displeased with many aspects of the Trump administration thus far, I'm basically against the strikes on the Houthis because I think ultimately we could resolve this issue just by putting pressure on Israel, but and stopping the slaughter in Gaza. But I will say this is kind of what I was looking forward to for a second Trump presidency is just the ridiculous like really funny things that would happen because I mean this is really funny. I find it really funny, so I am enjoying it, and I think it is something to chuckle about, even though it makes us look so bad. I mean,
So
it is pretty funny.
I can't help but laugh about it because I mean, let me just make it like totally clear for the audience, right? So there's 18 people in this group chat, right? And they are discussing like when they're going to attack, the payloads of the weaponry they're going to use, the types of aircrafts they're going to be used, and like the maybe a potential delay, right? And here's the people. I don't want people to think that these are minor people within the administration. The Secretary of Defense is on there, the Vice President, a National Security Advisor, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Director of National Intelligence, White House Chief of Staff, CIA Director, Homeland Security Advisor, and the U.S. Envoy to the Middle East. So those are literally the top people in the fucking world on this issue, and they don't, not a one of them realized, not a single fucking one of them realized that there was a person that was not supposed to be in there. This is unbelievable. And then Mike Walls goes on Laura Ingram's show and basically says some outrageous nonsense about how he's never met the guy, and he's like, "Why would I put this loser in the group chat on purpose?"
Look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the
execute
number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser.
Well, you did. You did. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it is. And that Goldberg guy, he left the chat, because he was afraid that, he could face, punishment or that it was a national security risk. So he actually left the group chat of his own volition before anyone else. And it's funny. Do you think anyone noticed when he left or something? Surely I guess not. I guess not though. I guess nobody
noticed. Nobody noticed till the story. If they noticed or if they realized something was up, they would have had a much better messaging on this than what they had, because they were caught completely off guard, and you can just tell that from the testimonies people had. I mean, for God's sakes, Pete Hegseth walks off a plane and basically just says, "Yeah, let me be very clear. We were not discussing war plans. We were just discussing the war in Yemen that we were engaging in." Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think the terminology was we weren't discussing war plans. We were discussing attack plans. Something like that. It was something like that. I'll have to.
Well, that's actually how they're getting out on this, and I'm gonna play a clip here really quick, which basically goes into like how the classified system works. I mean, this is worth a really good listen.
I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time.
So you can see she's not really directly answering the question, right? She just keeps restating this idea that none of what was shared was classified. So something's going on here. And it comes down to a very technical distinction about what that word, classified, even means, and who gets to decide at any given time.
It's a very small subset of senior government officials who can make classification decisions about whether something is or is not classified.
We all know from pick your favorite spy movie, or we can just read it directly from US law, that sensitive material can have 3 designations: top secret, secret, and confidential. These are classification levels based on how sensitive the information is. So if the CIA ever comes up to you and says, "Sorry, sir, this is classified information," what they're really saying is that the information has been classified into one of those 3 levels. But scroll down to the next section and we can see a very small group of people have what's called original classification authority, meaning they get to decide what's classified or not. And they are the president, the vice president, and agency heads, like, say, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
So yes, Secretary Hegseth has original classification authority for any information being classified within the Department of Defense. And so he can decide it's classified. He can also decide it's not classified or no longer classified.
But the idea is basically that, listen, if you have classification authority, you can decide what's classified or not. So it can be up to Pete Hegseth, if he so chooses, to put this stuff in a chat and someone said, hey, you shouldn't have done that, that's classified. He can say, no, it's not classified. I'm the guy who gets to decide if it's classified or not.
So basically, they're going to get off on a technicality here. Is that like, because Pete Hegseth gets to decide what's classified and what's not classified. So as long as that's why they're getting away with all this and not getting, guilty of perjury, is because at the end of the day, Pete Hegseth has the final say on what is and what is not classified here. So worst case, they put a hand on a Bible and he sticks his right hand in the air. Like, he's just going to say, like, yeah, I never classified it. Even though it was disgusting. Like, here's the thing. If a serviceman would have leaked that, or if the press would have leaked that, it would be illegal. But because he leaked it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not illegal. And it's like, how, I don't, this is not consistent, but unfortunately it is a technicality. Does that make sense? Like, but it's still crazy. Basically, if this isn't classified, what is?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just ridiculous, but
yeah, this is literally what I wanted out of this administration in terms of like an entertainment. Like, maybe not like something to this degree I never even dreamed of. I was thinking that we were going to get some funny press conferences. I never thought that we were going to get memes about the top people in government. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
How does this even make sense?
We're not even a full 3 months in. I mean, think about it like that. Isn't that crazy? We're not even a full 3 months in.
We're so spoiled. We're so spoiled. I mean, this is... do people defend this? I haven't seen many people defending this, but other than like the most like grifter like types who are just like, oh well, something about the Biden administration, like something ridiculous, like the Dave Rubin types, like they're just saying ridiculous stuff. But like, I don't know, have you seen anyone like credible defend any of this? Pretty much everyone I've seen is like even Laura Ingraham had to be like, okay, come on now, like give me a break.
I think I saw a clip of Greg Gutfeld playing defense. I was like, dude, really? But other than that, I don't think I've really seen anything. I mean, I'm sure Cat Turd probably had some system of apologetics to apply to this, but
right.
Barring that, I haven't seen any serious people defending this.
Yeah, this is just I don't know how to describe. I mean, I can only say absurd so many times, Darren. Like, and I'm sorry you have to hear that over and over again. But this whole thing, I mean,
well,
I just can't exactly. I can't even imagine that this is real. Like, when I saw this story break, I was like, there's no way. And I saw it literally like within like 30 seconds of it getting posted. Like, I just happened to be at the right place on the right time on X. And I was like, holy crap, there's no way this is real. And sure enough, it was. And I was like, and it just kept getting better and better because, like I said, they just lied. And then they brought out how it's a lie. And it just snowballs and snowballs. And then at the end of the day, nobody's getting fired. Nobody's getting nobody's losing security clearance. Like nobody's they're still gonna use Signal. Like none of this makes any sense. Oh God.
Yeah, well, I mean, what can you say? I think I've probably said my piece about it. It's just, it is funny, but it's sad as well that this is, these are, supposed to be some of our best and brightest, and this is what we're getting. So,
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, this is just exhibit on how incompetent this administration is. But yeah, I've said my piece as well, so